Hello, and you're listening to a special episode today where we are talking about the question, how do I know if STEPS is for me? You're listening to me, Lou, Lars, and Jamie, and we're all on the STEPS team, and we are discussing today, how did we know whether STEPS was for us? And that might help you, the listener, decide whether you want to do STEPS either now or in the future. So we're going to cut right to it. Lars, why don't you share? How did you know whether STEPS was for you?
Well, I knew I needed help, and the way I found out was that one day I was on my way back from work, and suddenly I heard myself say out loud, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." It really came from, in deep inside. It wasn't something that I've been thinking, but it just really came as a response to where I was emotionally. So I knew something is not right. I need help. And then, to be honest, the way into STEPS seemed more like a coincidence because that was something that I needed to look into. And I didn't think that it had anything to do with what was going on in my life, because in my perception, STEPS had something to do with chemical addictions and things like that. That was the knowledge I had at that time. But then as I read into it, I realized, oh, this is just what I need. So that's really how I found my way into it.
And Jamie, how about you?
The very first time was purely curiosity. I'd heard a guy talk about his experience of step one and the transforming power of step one and admitting you were powerless and something's unmanageable. And I was just really, really curious. I thought, what's going on in this process? What happened to this guy? And so when I saw an email advertising steps, literally the first time I went on was, wow, I just want to know what's going on in this 12-step process.
I definitely agree. I had a degree of curiosity as well. And I was at the point where, like you, Lars, I was just sick and tired of some of my behaviors. I decided to work on fear of rejection, and I was just exhausted from people pleasing. And I guess for me, I knew that I needed something. I wasn't actually sure if STEPS was the thing that I needed. And I could have put it off for 6 months or longer. But I just decided, actually, it was really, I wanted to do something where I was working on myself and my issue, because I felt like I'd neglected my needs for a long time. And I felt like, actually, this is quite important to take the time to work through this for my own kind of self-care and well-being. I'd kind of tried to read a lot of the self-help books. I'd done a lot in my own strength, and it felt like, okay, I'm a bit tired of that. It's not really working in the way that I was hoping, and why not try something different? But Lars, I guess there's times when we feel at that point of desperation where we need something to change. But there's other times when life just kind of is going kind of merrily along, and maybe things aren't perfect, but they're not awful. Is there a space for STEPS in that place? And what does that look like?
Yeah, it definitely turns out that there is a space for STEPS there. To be honest, given my own experience, I thought everyone needed to feel like me to go on a STEPS journey. I since found out that that's not the case. And even today, I'm still on STEPS on year 17, and my way into it today is very different from the first time. Now it's not that I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Now it's more like I need healthy principles to look at how I relate to God, how I relate to myself, and how I relate to other people. And the tools of the STEPS process, they are well-proven tools. They really, really work. And it seems that they work basically for us human beings. I've been journeying with so many different kinds of people from all kinds of places of life, ages, and social standing, and so on. And it seems that when we get to this STEPS group, we are all in the same boat, and we all need this sort of stuff for life, not just to be happening, but really to find tools to be aware of how do we lead this life as well as possible.
What difference did doing steps make to you, Jamie, if any?
I think from going from curiosity, I did the course again when there was really a point of arrest, a little bit like the needle scratched across the record. And steps offered me an operating system to deal with something that wasn't determination, wasn't white knuckles, wasn't, well, pull up your socks and try harder. So when I had this kind of a point of arrest, I remember there was some negative feedback, and it felt quite crushing at the time. And I realized, wow, as soon as there's negative feedback, I'm walking on eggshells. And so I thought, actually, steps, I'm going from curiosity to work on something that's really pronounced. I'm walking on eggshells, and it gave me this operating system, this internal culture to deal with something that was unhelpful and holding me back.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I definitely relate to that. I think when I first did steps, I wanted something that was going to fix me so I could go and be productive and efficient by step 12. And I felt quite impatient about seeing change. And it wasn't till I did steps that I realized actually the key to freedom is actually being in the process. And there's something very healing about going through this journey with other people who are going through their journeys. I'm working on my stuff, they're working on theirs. And I began to learn for the first time what it looks like to make peace with God, make peace with others, but actually also make peace with myself. And I think, I don't know about you both, but I feel like I was walking around with this kind of personal angst and dis-ease with myself. And I kind of took it wherever I went. And to actually have a place where I could make peace with myself was really profound. And the thing with steps that I realized was that it's not a quick fix, but it's going slow and deep. But there's actually work involved in that. And when we do steps, we're obviously working on the exercises, we're doing homework, we're meeting every week. And I knew that I had to prioritize that, because if I didn't, I wouldn't engage with it at a heart level. And so I guess where I'm getting to is the commitment involved in doing steps. And Lars, why don't you talk a little bit about what that looks like? What could we expect from when we do steps in terms of commitment?
Yeah, so the first commitment is really to make the decision, do I want to participate at an introduction or not? We have made it quite clear that you can't really sign up for a steps course, but you can sign up for an introduction. So that's actually the only thing we commit us to in the first round, because we need the introduction to hear, do we believe this is for us for this time? Do we have the energy? Do we have the time? And the time commitment, in a way, isn't that big. I mean, takes, the good part of an hour, bit more to do the actual session, and then perhaps half an hour to an hour for the preparation, depending on your style of working. But there is a lot going on in terms of reflection, being in that sphere, being in that place. So it does require some mental energy, so to speak, or emotional energy as you walk through the process. So it's a bit like running in a way, isn't it? Or things like that, exercises. It takes energy to do it, but then you have more energy afterwards for having done it. I feel like steps is a bit like that for most people. Then, of course, there would be some who would be in a place where what they actually need is something else. So some people might be in a place where they need therapy. They do need to get some professional feedback on their specific situation. So there are times when people come at a steps introduction where we say, you're very welcome on steps, but we also believe that you would be really helped by something else.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I think, I guess you spoke to it anyway, but the emotional investment is fairly high, even if it's not the kind of practical it's not like spending hours in homework, but it's the needing to be ready to engage with the issue that you're bringing, I guess, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, in a way, our culture and many things around us teach us to look away from the things we find hard emotionally. We do the opposite in steps. We go directly into those areas. And of course, therapeutic research has shown that is what you need to do. You have to go into it if you want to experience real change in your life. And that is what we are doing at Steps. And therefore, there are times when during the process it feels, oh, this is tough. I'm really looking at what this thing, whatever I'm working on, what it does to me, what it does to the people I love. And of course, that can be hard. And then yet it's also hopeful because I am doing it in a process where we are looking at, so what do I need to leave with a higher power or God? Because I can't fix that myself. That's quite freeing, actually. I need to leave that. But also then, what can I identify in terms of this I can actually do something about, and what can I do about it? That's freeing as well.
Yeah, and definitely my experience as well. So lastly, Jamie, what encouragement would you give to anyone who is unsure about whether Steps is for them?
I would say it offers a new way to be with God and a brand new way to be with yourself, and a new way to be with other people, which is incredible. I would say ultimately, say as a Christian, I would say ultimately it offers an awakening in terms of your conscious awareness of God in a new way. It offers a new type of relationship with God, as Lars says, the spirituality of the being the little one, being the child, which is amazing. And I would say, even if you don't really know why you feel like what you feel, this process will give an amazing way to abide with God and walk with God and connect with him. It is really a ultimately, right at its heart, it's a relational journey. And I think that's the heart of it, because I think that so often we try to fix ourselves and modify ourselves and change ourselves. And I would say, strangely, the process takes your mind off fixing and sorting, and essentially you walk with a higher power, you walk with God one day at a time and one step at a time.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And just, sorry, I said finally, but now really finally, Lars, if someone is not on a faith journey or doesn't have a faith background, is this process still for them?
Absolutely. And typically there would be a number of people who wouldn't have a faith background on our Steps courses. And what we tell them is use what is helpful for you, where we say God and thinking about the Christian narrative. We say you can say a higher power if that makes sense to you. You can even say life or destiny, and that helps in a way. And then people can choose to say that's what I do throughout the process, and others choose to say, well, I will also use this process to explore. Is this something for me, the Christian message? Is there really help to be had by engaging more with that? So, which is totally up to any individual participating on the course. We say every participant is in the driver's seat themselves. So we don't take over in that sense. It's up to everyone participating what they want to do with the material.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thank you very much for sharing. And I look forward to seeing you at the next intro and then the next course.